All right, well, let's move on. Let's go to running backs. Uh, we could talk about Ohio State, but I want to talk about let's talk about Minnesota. And I'm gonna let you kind of take this over. But this running back room is nuts. And it's highlighted by Darius Taylor, but I know that you and I know that it's not just Darius Taylor here.
No, and that was a real emphasis for the staff this year because if you saw them last year, right? And obviously they brought in some guys they thought were going to be good. They returned some guys that they thought were going to be good, and nobody stayed healthy. And part of that was due to you had a bust in a transfer guy that came in Sean Tyler, a guy that just couldn't hang on to the football, and so you couldn't give him carries. You had Bryce Williams go down with a big time injury. Zach Evans couldn't stay healthy. Darius Taylor when he was healthy was unbelievable. And if you we've done a video on rising star Darius Taylor, we've talked a lot about him. The guy is coming in his sophomore year. He averaged like 150 yards a game basically as a freshman in the games he was healthy. And then obviously Jordan Newman, who was your RB5, who was a former walk-on guy that changed positions to be a running back to give you depth there. Oh yeah, he had 200-yard game against Michigan State, but then you fed him the ball 40 times and he was done the rest of the year because he was just so beaten up. And so that room took a lot of hits last year. And part of that was because your offense couldn't really get going passing the football, and your O-line and your receivers were just not very productive. And your O-line, was kind of better run blocking than it was pass blocking. So you fed your guys and they all got hurt. And so I think this year, a lot of the emphasis has been, let's change that because it's a lot. And we don't want that happening. And so they brought in two guys from the high school ranks that they're putting on early enrollees, Jaden Wright and Oda Ojib Ojib. I'm gonna butcher it, but he's a really, really good player for Pennsylvania. And then you bring in two transfers and Marcus Major, a former high recruit, talented player from Oklahoma who's battled injuries in his career, and then Sia Bangura, a guy that we've been high on here on the Redshirt Sophomore from Ohio in the MAC, another guy uber productive for multiple years in the MAC to come and complement obviously Darius Taylor returning. We talk about short-term future, check. Darius Taylor is going to be a top three running back in the Big Ten. Sia Bangura, Marcus Major, Jordan Newman, all returning guys that are veteran guys that have played a ton of football, productive football that you really believe in. And then the future is there because Derek Taylor's so young. Bangura's got a couple years. Newman's got a couple years. You've got the freshman coming in that you really like. And yeah, I mean, a position that's very valuable in an offense like Minnesota's obviously is going to be willing and put in spots to make plays and to shine. And it sounds like this year, this group really is ready for that with the depth that they have and the star power at the top end, making it one of the best rooms in college football.
And Bangura, I know he disappointed last year, definitely, but I think the offense as a whole disappointed. So I'm not lower on Bangura than I was last year at all. But I will say
And yeah,
it, you have all
disappointing. He
these
still
running
ran
backs.
for 800 yards.
Yeah, 4.5 a clip or whatever it was. You have a loaded running back room, but in my opinion, and you might have a better opinion than me because you're more connected to this program than I am. Darius Taylor will still get 20, 25 carries a game. Is that crazy?
Yeah, I think the goal. I mean, they like to sit around. If in an ideal world, right? They talk about pair and a spare, and so you need a pair of running backs that you really like, and then a spare guy. This year, obviously, it's more like a pair and two spares and three spares and whatever else, which is kind of historically what it's been. But yeah, to be Darius Taylor gets 25, rushes a game. Bangura gets 8 to 10. Major gets 8 to 10. Newman gets 4 to 6. And however that divvies it up that way. And I think that's what they're feeling really comfortable with. And also, not to mention, we've talked about this in our Dylan Laube video when we broke down the running back from New Hampshire as a future draft steal in this upcoming draft. Max Brosmer, the quarterback coming in from New Hampshire, excuse me, there, a guy that really likes to use the check down. And so it's been an emphasis this offseason for Minnesota to be getting the running backs more involved. And Darius Taylor, a former wide receiver coming out of high school, Bangura can catch the football. Marcus Major can catch the football. Guys like that, they can really get involved and also other ways to shine and maybe give them the ball in space or maybe take hits from safeties and cornerbacks and not linebackers and D linemen, every play.
Absolutely. This running back room is nuts. I would consider it, you know, the top two isn't necessarily the best duo in the country, but in terms of like pure depth, like and talent overall, like this is one of the best running back rooms in the country. No questions asked. And this is a program that we know is going to use them, which
Yeah,
we love. If you're going to pile all that running back talent, just use it, man. Just use it.
they will. You know they will.
I love a good Minnesota team in late November that just pounds the rock.
I mean, if you're watching on YouTube here, you're probably watching Jordan Newbin's highlights at some point here. I'm hoping we can sneak it in. It'll be against Michigan State, and it'll be in late October, early November. And the guy had like 40 carries and 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. And yeah, he was best known for being Tyler Newbin's brother. And he comes out and does 200 yards on you just because he's an absolute tough to tackle in that cold weather. And I was there at that game. Trust me, it was cold.
Yeah, absolutely stud.